Now a little bit more difficult topic, a more engaging topic like sustainability, which is very complex for us. So I'm the warm-up act, okay? So I will keep this short before I will hand over to Cordula on the IFRA Sustainability Report. But I would like to say one thing. So I worked, before I joined IFRA, I worked in the flavor industry, right? That was before I saw the light. And when I was in the flavor industry, we started with this IOFI IFRA Sustainability, let's say, initiative or report back in 2018. I'm looking at Cordula, I think it was 2018. And what happened at that time, it was a new thing for the flavor and the fragrance industry. And we developed a charter and we developed the first report. But what was amazing about it was that we mapped out already the initiatives that took place on company level, right? We wanted to first have kind of like, what does the industry already do? And what was absolutely fascinating was to see how much sustainability was already naturalized in the companies, how much they were already doing. And we were very happy that we already could build on these experiences and also on these initiatives the companies were doing. And I'm coming initially in my career from other sectors, and I can tell you that the fragrance and flavor industry was already far ahead than what other sectors were not even dreaming about what they were doing. So it was already fantastic. This brings the challenge, of course, the further you already start high, and you have to still make progress, and you have to show the progress, and that's becoming, of course, a much more difficult, let's say, point to make, but I think we are on a good journey. These were the first part of the opening remarks. Maybe we go to the next, I have it here, next slide. So IFRA is taking the sustainability and the sustainability journey very, very serious. I'm sharing with you the IFRA strategy. Normally we develop a strategy for 5 years, so just to know where our resources going in. And you see here highlighted left, sustainability. It's one of the core elements what IFRA is doing. We take it extremely serious, we put resources in. And to give you maybe a little bit more broader picture, sustainability for us has a lot of different pillars. There's a lot of sustainability regulatory developments, right, that have to be absorbed by us as a secretariat. Then we have to develop the report and charter, which is our project. And then on the third, we as IFRA, because the charter is together with our colleagues from the flavor industry, IOFI, but then we also do our own sustainability initiatives. And I think Rick from UEBT is here. He will also then highlight a little bit what we are doing there. Okay, so it's quite a nice story, and it's actually also quite a nice slide. It's the signatories. So we have now 160, and we are almost updating this weekly at the moment. And Mu Ming said it yesterday, we had 8 signatories from China alone in the last 6 months, which is fantastic. India is very dynamic, a huge interest in following. So we are super happy. And it's very interesting, while everybody says sustainability is not so high on the agenda at the moment, we see actually the opposite. There's a huge interest in following this initiative and following this charter and providing input and information and data to the report, which is quite a task, if I might say. So very good. We are very happy about this. We can always do better, but we are on a very good journey here. Good. I don't want to go too much into the details because Cordula is going to give a very detailed view on this, but very clear is that without the data and information from our members, this would not be possible. It's simple as that. We need the input and the expertise. We bring it together. We have a dedicated sustainability committee, which again is then managed by a so-called ExCom sustainability committee. And then, of course, it's reported into the IFRA board. So you can see we are really looking into this from all angles. But there would be nothing without the expertise from our members, which also provide the resources to come to the meetings, to discuss the results, and to bring them forward. And with this, I think that's the perfect, let's say, a bridge to Cordula. Sustainability report, we published the third one in July, just before the summer break. That was our internal deadline. And we managed, I'm very happy about this. It's a lot of work, and I'm very happy I do not, at the board, we had a board meeting on Tuesday. I said, it's so funny just to put one slide on the sustainability report while there was so much work behind it. And I'm very happy that Cordula can do a little bit of a deep dive with us about the results. Cordula, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and I think before I dive into the results of the report, let me just give you a quick overview who is really behind all those results. Yeah, of course, it's within IFRA. We have Alex and Marta, who are always supporting us. IOFI, it's Sven and Joris. And then, of course, it's the experts, sustainability experts of our member companies who are with us, who are not only with us on the report, but also on all the other things that we are doing. They are answering the questionnaires we are having. They are looking into how should we interpret it, which initiatives should we do in the future. And of course, it's the chairman of the Sustainability Committee, Jonathan Mohr, who has been doing this job now for 5 years. He unfortunately cannot be here, this Global Fragrance Summit. So it's my pleasure then to be able to share with you the results of the work of the past year. So progressing on sustainability. The highlights from the report. The charter, which Alex has just mentioned, is grouped in 5 different chapters. And the same is true for the report. You find for each chapter, you find questions that we have been asking. It's almost 40 different questions that we are up to, and we group the answers then according also to these different focus areas. As already mentioned, report has been published in July, and the following slides, there's a lot of details on them. If you cannot read it, and I know from behind it's a bit difficult, yeah, no worries, you can download the full report, and I truly recommend to really give it a good view, because there's so many details in there, really gives you a feeling for which are the topics that we prioritize when it comes to sustainability within our industry. The nice thing is that the whole report is based on about half of the signatories to the charter having answered. And it's also the large fragrance companies as well as smaller and medium companies. So it's really a representative view of what's happening in our industry. We are quite convinced of that. We have been asking the same questions now for 3 consecutive reports, but we have added a few new ones, so I'll focus on those specifically. So let's go to the first focus area, which is about responsible sourcing. So what we see here is that over 60% of the respondents have a global sourcing strategy in place, and this is representing over 95% of the industry by market share. So certainly responsible sourcing is a topic our industry takes care of. They either work individually or with industry groups on issues linked to fair wages. And there's the new question that we put in this area here is actually about product carbon footprinting. How many of our companies are already asking their suppliers to give them a product carbon footprint for their product? And it's actually 1 in 3 who are already doing that. And the interesting fact is that another 50% say they plan to do it. So for sure, it's a topic that is coming. Next area is environmental footprint and climate change. So the figure to remember here is 90%. Yeah, and 90% of the respondents already have a global environmental impact assessment and management strategy or plan to implement that. Same, over 90% of the companies are taking action on water consumption. And same number again, looking into circularity and reducing waste by that. When it comes to carbon emissions, that's on the right-hand part of that slide, you see what are companies measuring there. We have about 2/3 of the respondents who are measuring Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, and yeah, a bit more than 1/3 who are also looking at the Scope 3 impact. And we then also looked at, again, on the product level, product carbon footprint. Are companies already calculating product carbon footprints for their products and sharing it with their customers then? And again, you can see about 1/3 is already doing it, and another 50% roughly plans to do that. Next comes the workplace culture. So here we have 3/4 of respondents have a global occupational health and safety strategy in place. And we also asked what standards are behind, or what kind of assessments are there to follow up on what's happening. And what you can see here, that EcoVadis and SMATTER, they are the audits that most of our member companies are taking. Almost half of the respondents have diversity, inclusion, and equality principles, where they have specific processes in place to adhere to these. And over 90% have work-life balance initiatives, for example, structured well-being programs. The next area is product safety and design. And I mean, we talked about that basically all day yesterday. So I think it's no surprise to any of you that this really is a priority in our industry. And this is then what we can clearly see from 90% occasionally or systematically engaging with customers to improve the health and safety impact of their products. Over 80% integrating sustainability principles into R&D. And this, again, has been a new question, because we really wanted to know, it's nice what we do about the existing products, but about the future palette. How are companies integrating sustainability there? And you can see the details on that question again on the right-hand part of the slide. And what I found extremely interesting here is we also asked for barriers. What are barriers for companies to integrate sustainability principles in their R&D work? And what we see there, that it's limited customer demand on the one hand, or lack of information from suppliers. So clearly what we need is cooperation along the value chain to really progress on that topic. And finally, that's the area of transparency. What we see here is that 90% of respondents have a global governance strategy in place or plan to do that for the next 12 months. Question again is, how do companies report? What are the standards that they are measuring against? And you can see that on the right-hand side here, there's actually 3 reporting standards that are mostly used. It's the UN Sustainable Development Goals, it's the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, and the UN Global Compact. They are most popular. And actually, 2 in 3 respondents, they really go beyond the mandatory requirements when it comes to reporting to these standards, and we clearly see that this is an improvement compared to the last report. So third-party evaluation becoming more and more important. Yeah, and with this third-party evaluation becoming more and more important, I want to give you an overview of actually how our member companies are evaluated. I already mentioned before EcoVadis being an important standard that companies are looking at, and this is how EcoVadis score has been developing for IFRA IOFI members since 2017. The really nice message is that all the companies that are reporting, be it large multinationals or smaller companies, they are all in that gold area here on the chart, which means they are among the top 5% of EcoVadis assessed companies. Yeah, and I mean, I can only come back to what Alex said earlier. Yeah, truly, flavor and fragrance industry, these companies, they are at the top when it comes to sustainability. Yeah, the other thing that is really nice, if you look at the lower dotted line here, this is the not large multinational companies who are reporting against EcoVadis standard. And you can see the number is growing from 7 to 19 now. And also the figure, I mean, the gap between the larger ones and the smaller ones, this is really much smaller than it was initially. As I said before, all of us on gold level. So, this whole report, yeah, and seeing where we are, how we are making progress, this has been a lot of effort in this year. But apart from that, we have a number of other initiatives, which I very quickly want to go into. So we have been publishing the IFRA Scope 1 and Scope 2 report. It's available on our website for everybody to look at. And IOFI has been working on a Scope 3 product carbon footprint repository, which we are told is also going to be launched quite soon. Then there has been quite some work around CSRD. Yeah, guidance on biological materials has been developed, as well guidance on SOC and SVHC components. Another European directive that has kept us busy is the EUDR, where we have been doing a scoping exercise for palm. And then there has been the cooperation with the UEBT, but here Rick will share more on that. Alex mentioned it a little bit. One of our key tasks is that we really do best practice sharing. It's also here the larger member companies who really share what they are experiencing, the challenges, how they are tackling them, sharing it with smaller companies. So this is something that comes together in the webinars that we are organizing. And what we have now decided is that for the benefits of those companies who are actually joining the Sustainability Charter, they'll have access to the slides and recordings of the webinars. So it makes sense to sign the charter, document that sustainability is really key for you. You'll get more information then. What we have held this year has been one webinar on biodiversity. This has been a nice cooperation with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development because they have been actually sharing with us their concept for nature positive. And then just recently, last week, basically the same slides I'm presenting now, as well as the results of this IFRA Scope 1 and Scope 2 project and the Scope 3 project by IOFI. We also presented that in a quite intense webinar, 1.5 hours, so that companies can really look at what have we been doing. And we plan another webinar towards the end of the year on EUDR. And finally, I mean, everything I have shared so far, that has been material which is already published. You can go into the details, look at that by downloading the respective reports from our website. This is now some brand new information. The European Union has been working on a bioeconomy strategy, or still working on it. And I mean, bioeconomy, we mentioned it a couple of times yesterday as well. Of course, it's a topic for our industry. So we thought it makes sense that as IFRA, we get engaged. Also, the European Commission is quite open to really get our feedback. So, of course, in order to give feedback, we need a good data basis. We cannot just go out of the blue. So we initiated a survey where we have been asking member companies to tell us more about how bioeconomy and renewable raw materials, how important this is to them. And first, let me explain, and we had quite a lot of discussions about what are renewable raw materials. Is it only some biological material, or could it also be recycled material? Could it be captured carbon that is used as a raw material? And in the end, we decided to have this rather broad definition. Renewable raw materials would be biomaterial, would be CO2 that has been captured, and would be recycled material. But at the same time, we also wanted to differentiate between, when it comes to biomaterials, naturals, which are clearly defined, and also so-called biomass-based products. So this is now, you see that here, it's actually 3 different categories. Biomass-based, excluding naturals, it's naturals, and it's all the other renewables, like recycled, captured carbon, or also biomass balanced. And the first question we have actually been asking is that companies look at what they are selling, the perfume mixtures they are selling within Europe. What is the feedstock that is in there? What is the percentage? And these are now the answers of the first results to the survey. It has been 7 companies who have been answering, large ones as well as small ones. So we think it gives you quite a good indication, of where we are as an industry. But of course, I mean, more answers would be really helpful to make this databases more sound. And not a surprise, you see that fossil-derived ingredients are the vast majority. The average of those 7 answers is 70%, but some company answered 50%, others answered 85%. So there's quite a spread. Next category then would be biomass-based products, excluding the naturals, with about 20%, again a large spread, and then we have the naturals with roughly 10%. And the other renewables, the circular, let's call it other circular raw materials, at the moment, this doesn't play a big role. But we did not only ask about where we are today, we also asked where do you expect the industry to go towards 2050? Yeah, and of course, 2050, this is quite some time, yeah, so please bear that in mind. And what you clearly see is that especially those other renewables are expected to be growing. Yeah, there's this dark green arrow here. Of course, they're very tiny at the moment, so growth is more easily achieved. Same for biomass-based and naturals. Yeah, also growth is being expected here. And then, of course, fossil-derived, their share would be diminished. So those were the quantitative questions. We have been asking qualitative questions as well. For biotechnology, the interesting thing is that basically companies have been answering, right now it really only plays a marginal role. Yeah? It is used to produce biomass-based and naturals, but it's really small amounts only. So a lot for the future. So this will be something we'll be discussing further within the Sustainability Committee. What that means, how will we also convey respective messages then to the European Commission. We asked also for the primary reason to shift away from fossil feedstocks to renewables, and actually very clearly this is the carbon footprint reduction. Yeah? So that is, I mean, unisono, all companies answered that this is what is driving them. Of course, when we talk about environmental effects of the raw materials that we are using, it's not enough to only look at carbon, but to do a life cycle assessment is something that gives you a broader overview. Here, companies answered that, they occasionally are doing full LCAs, but it's something they are by far, I mean, it's not being done for every ingredient. And we asked for what kind of changes they are seeing or expecting. And again, the target of this whole feedstock shift, carbon emissions are reduced when you shift from fossils to renewables. But there is always the risk that other categories are actually going in a different direction. Yeah, I mean, if you use biomass, it's not surprising that land use would be increasing, but also water use is a category to be critically watched. Also, social aspects play a different role when you use renewable raw materials. And regarding biodiversity, also you have to be careful. So a whole range of things to be further looked into and further to be understood how, as an industry, we will tackle those issues. Primary obstacles to scaling up renewable materials were mentioned, and it's the higher costs, number one, and the uncertain market pull. Again, asking towards the future, where do we expect our industry to go? More renewables to be used, but will depend a lot also on what the market is asking for. And the most important regulatory gaps that we're seeing are issues surrounding the life cycle analysis methodology, also the European product environmental footprint regulation, and the missing subsidies to have the money to scale that up. Yeah, and I mentioned before, I mean, this is in Europe, this is just starting. Yeah, the EU bioeconomy strategy is expected to be published in November. And then based on that, we expect additional legislative or non-legislative proposals, yeah, and that means we want to be able to answer. So I can just ask you again, please reach out to Johannes Weiss at IFRA. He's the one who has been coordinating this whole topic, putting together all the results from the survey. And if you haven't answered or your company hasn't answered the survey yet, yeah, do so we have a better basis for then discussing further amongst the Sustainability Committee what to do with all these results. Yeah, what is the position of the industry? How do we ask the European Commission to act in order to bring this forward in a truly sustainable manner? Yeah, so that's the overview of what we have been doing and what we are looking at for the next year, for sure. There will be other topics, and which exactly we will be working on, this is something we'll decide towards the end of this year. There's another survey coming where we really ask members to say what are their sustainability priorities and where they expect IFRA to support them. So we are very much looking forward to hopefully also a high response rate on that so that we can then formulate our working plan. Yeah, and I think we have, I don't know how you planned it, I think we have enough time later on the panel, yeah, if there are further questions on this, because I think I would like to hand over now.
Everybody took note of questions that they had, and we cover all your questions during the panel discussion. So
Exactly.
it was very clear. Thank you very much for your presentation, Cordula. Thank you.